The Premier League makes an insane amount of money. Over $6 billion a season. So today we're going to try and bankrupt the Premier League in Football Manager. However, this is much easier said than done. I've used the pre-game editor to give all the clubs a minus £750 million bank balance, plus they owe the bank an extra £750 million with a 10% interest rate. I've removed all of their sponsors and finally put them all into administration, which just happens to remove all of those wealthy owners. But when we jump into the game and use the pre-game editor, the bank balance has already been boosted up by 600 million and all the clubs have been given a few sponsors. Basically, Football Manager doesn't like putting clubs into massive amounts of debt. So we're going to try a few things here today to try and break the game essentially. So I'll use the in-game editor to change it all back to what it should be. But that's not the end of Football Manager's tricks. I've simulated through to the end of the season and Newcastle have a bank balance of £540 million. In under 12 months, Newcastle have made a profit of over £1 billion. Looking at their income, 2.1 billion of it came from other, which is a fairly sketchy definition and to my understanding is basically an auto-balancing part of the game. Oh, and remember that £750 million they owe to the bank? Well, that has somehow disappeared. Under loan repayments and interest, they paid £20 million last season, so something seems a little suspicious. So Newcastle may have had the biggest game, but there are still 6 Premier League clubs that are in the red. The biggest of which is Southampton, who have got minus £98 million in the bank account. So let's try again then, shall we? Although this time we're going to make them pay £100 million per season in stadium rent and make sure the clubs are always amateur. These put all the players on amateur contracts, meaning anyone can sign them at any time on a free transfer. And the Premier League clubs won't get a penny. Kind of like Kevin De Bruyne moving to PSG on a free transfer, or Virgil van Dijk moving from Liverpool to Man City to help them win the Premier League title ahead of Chelsea. But I forgot to factor in one really important part, and that is that amateur contracts do not pay the players. So as you can see, Erling Haaland just earns nothing. So actually, they are saving money by not spending money on wages. So as a result, this time around, Southampton have £68 million in their bank account. They've saved quite a bit of money. And I expect Newcastle to have, I don't know, 800, £900 million or so, or 110 million in the red. This whole thing is just really confusing. So for the next attempt, we're going to make the clubs semi-professional instead. And I'm going to give every single player in the Premier League a £500,000 per week contract, going all the way down to the youth level. So I've just found some 18-year-old kid here at Crystal Palace who's on £500,000 a week, which is absolutely amazing. Although this does have a knock-on effect to players out on loan. Lincoln City are now paying 50% of Luke Plange's £500,000 per week contract. This might make some Football League clubs also go bankrupt. Although somehow they've been able to afford it because they've got just under £1 million in the bank account by the end of the season, and Luke Plange did play 35 times for them across the season. Again, I just don't really understand how finances work in this universe. It just seems like you can spend what you want and it doesn't matter. But we are starting to have an effect on the Premier League because loads of clubs have been in administration this season. Oh my word, and Liverpool won the title with minus 1.58 billion in their bank accounts. I didn't even think that was possible. It actually happens to be the exact same percentage of you lot that aren't subscribed to the channel, so feel free to do so, please. I mean, if we use the in-game editor, the minimum and maximum value is minus 1 billion and plus 1 billion, and they've got minus 1.58 billion, so this shouldn't be possible, but it has somehow happened. But of course, Man City have got £732 million in their bank account. This is the most bonkers thing. So let's dive a little bit deeper. Liverpool spent almost £1.6 billion on player wages and another £677 million on other. Man City, on the other hand, had a very similar outlay in terms of player wages and other. But on the income side, they made 1.6 billion from other and 1.2 billion from sponsorship last season. This season it's already 909 million pounds. On the flip side, Liverpool didn't even reach 100 million in sponsorship last season, so for whatever reason Man City have got some huge sponsors. And we can't even blame club reputation, which is the single most powerful variable in the game. Obviously, the higher the reputation a club is, the more interest they're going to get from sponsors around the world and have more money paid to them. But Liverpool and Man City have basically the exact same reputation. I've not touched it in this game, so I have no idea what's going on. So now I'm going to try and take away ways in which clubs can make money. We're going to make every single ticket price just the £1, and I'm doubling the amount of outstanding loans they have, as well as upping it to 50% interest. I've also gone through every single staff member and given them all a contract of £500,000 a week, but that hasn't been reflected in game for whatever reason, and I'm not going to go through every single staff member individually to change their contract, because that would just be a little bit too time consuming. Once again, we've got a bunch of clubs in administration and some wild bank balances. Manchester United find themselves with £712 million in their accounts, whereas Arsenal have got -1 billion. I'd love for there to be an actual way to properly bankrupt clubs in Football Manager, but there just seems to be too many things that I can't control that just keep bringing clubs back to life. To be fair though, it does have some long-term effects. As you can see, in 10 years' time, the Premier League does have some different teams in there, although Rotherham and Derby County have been relegated. Man City are the only Premier League club to have a minus bank balance though, of -93 million, so that's maybe something a little strange that's happened along the way. But every other club financially just seems to have recovered, other than West Ham, who had 12 points deducted in the Championship, and have got -12 million pounds in the bank accounts. And Aston Villa and Leicester dropped down into League One, but they have just been back promoted, so they're on the rise once again. And given how poor Leicester have been in real life this season, you don't need to bankrupt them for them to be in danger of going all the way down to League One. But rather than take money away, how about I give some money to you guys instead? Well, if you want to try and win some cash, there's a video on screen that you want to watch right now.